Okay, we are back and we are looking today at Genesis 33. This is the conclusion of Jacob's and Esau's story here. And I want to go back, if you would, to before we get to our chapter 2, the blessing that Isaac gave to Esau. We know the blessing he gave to Jacob, and if you remember how his story ended, Esau was in distress that Isaac stole his blessing. And he begs, I'm sorry, that Jacob stole his blessing. And so he begs his father Isaac to bless him too. And so we're going to go back to that and hear again what Isaac's blessing was to Esau. I'm trying to find where that was. Is it Genesis, where we left? Going back. This is not Genesis 27, I think it is. Yeah, here we go. Genesis 27. And he said, Esau weeps and says, "Have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And so this is Genesis 27, 39 and 40. And Bob Fowler, would you read that for us? This is Isaac's blessing of Esau.
Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck.
Okay. Not exactly what Esau wanted to hear, but let's look at the prophet. It's really a prophecy that he gives to him. So when he says, "Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high," what does that mean for Esau?
Things are going to be tough.
Yeah, things will be tough. First, location-wise, where is he going to be?
It's going to be hard for him to grow food and to gather food.
He goes to Edom. He goes to Edom, which is not exactly a fertile area. Apparently.
Yeah, and the fatness of the earth and the dwelling with the dew of heaven on high, that's a reference to the promised land. If you remember how was the land of Canaan described to the Israelites? He says, well, this is going to be a land like what? You
Milk
remember
and honey.
Milk
Yeah.
and honey.
flowing with milk and honey. It'll be a great place to live. There'll be plenty of there, and it really is. There are times when it's just absolutely overwhelming. So, and if you remember when they go into the promised land, they bring back just enormous amounts of fruit and showing that this is really a good land. We got the giants to deal with, but this is a really good land. So that's the first part. He will be away from the promised land, and that's what we're going to see in this story too. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. That's an interesting one.
Mm.
I don't know if you know the history of the relationship of the Jews and the Edomites.
They were frequently at war. They were not
They,
friends.
I don't know if you know this, but there was a time during the intertestamental period after God had sent them into exile, and they were under the Babylonians, if you remember. They were under the Persians. They were under the Greeks, and under the Greeks they rebelled. And remember the story of Hanukkah and the rebellion against Antiochus Epiphanes, and they win their freedom. That's around 160 BC.
Mm-hmm.
And they become their own. They're free people for about 100 years. They have their own little kingdom, and during that time, they actually annex Edom. So the Edomites become a part of that kingdom, which enables an Edomite to eventually become the king of the Jews. And I don't know if you know who that was, that
Herod?
Edomite.
Is it Herod?
That's Herod, yeah. Because he actually becomes, the Edomites become, they kind of get absorbed in with the Jews during that time. And they eventually Herod becomes king to the distress of many of the Jews because he's not of the tribe of Judah. He's not one of their own, but it was very, very interesting time. So, but there's going to be a time of warfare, and that's true. That's the story of Edom. Their constant warfare and troubles, and they're always sort of subservient to Israel and to Judah. But then he says something here that's very interesting. Verse 40, second part, the only sort of, I guess you could say, good news here. When you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck. It's that picture of Esau being enslaved in some way to his brother. There's going to be a time when he will be free of him. And I think this is a story of that, or at least the first fulfillment of that in this scene with Esau and Jacob, because we know that immediately Esau is then enslaved, not by Jacob here, but he's enslaved by his own bitterness. Hated Jacob because of the blessing, and he's determined that he's going to kill him at some point. So Esau becomes a real slave of bitterness toward his brother. And now this is the story of that sort of being thrown off of him, and he breaks free. So if we remember where we left off last time, Jacob has been reconciled with his father-in-law. What was his father-in-law's name?
Laban.
Laban, very good. Laban, who also was pursuing him to do him real harm, and God intervenes and saves him, and he has peace and ends with a covenant with Laban. Now he comes and he realizes that Esau is on the way to meet him with 400 men. He's terrified, and he has that encounter with the Lord, where he wrestles with the Lord, and that's where we left it off last time, where God reaffirms his covenant with him. And we pick it up now with this encounter with Esau. So let's see what happens here. Elizabeth, would you start us off verses 1 to 3? This is Genesis 33. Verses...
And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the 2 female servants. And he put the servants with their children in front, then Leah with her children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all. He himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother.
Okay. All right. So Jacob looks, and what does he see?
Esau was coming.
Trouble.
Okay. Esau coming. And what does he see with Esau here?
An army, 400 men.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Be one thing if someone is looking for terms of peace, they'll usually send a scout, something much less intimidating. But Esau is coming with 400 men. Okay. And if you remember, let me see. What we with how many men did Abraham take to defeat the Chaldeans?
I think it was 300.
I think it was 700, wasn't it?
No, it was like 318, like that, trained men from his house. So that's an army with 400 men. I'll put a question mark here, but it's terrifying, and you can see that Jacob is terrified. It's not like 400 people, women and children. It's 400 men coming over the border, coming toward him. That's one of the things is as you like, we have this whole issue with immigration right now, and the terrifying sights that they're showing from the border is not, all these families trying to cross. It's all these military age men that are crossing the borders. That's what's bringing great fear and trepidation, because we know this is not a good thing right now. So Esau's coming with 400 men. Jacob responds. What does Jacob do in response to that? So Jacob prepared, we'll call it prepares for this meeting. And he does a few things. Let's go through that.
He divides the children
Yes.
between Rachel and Leah.
Yes. Divides the children with their moms. Remember, there's 4 of them, the Rachel, Leah, and the
2 female servants.
and the two servants, right? And the two. Anyone remember the names of the two servants?
Beulah or something.
Well, it was Bill. I think it was Bilhah and Zilpah, if I'm not mistaken. So, those two, they and now what's the order of how does he? So, what? First of all, why does he divide them up like that?
So somebody survives.
Yeah, yeah. He had argued that before. He says, you know, I'm going to divide them up here in the hopes that if he attacks one group, the other can escape. And so dividing them up, sending them to him in waves. If something should happen to the first group, the others can retreat and perhaps find refuge somewhere. And how does he send them out there? What's the order?
Puts the servants first, then then Rachel and Leah, and he's last.
Actually, himself. He actually went on before them.
On before them. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he went before them. So he's not a coward here. He's not hiding behind the kids, but he sends the two servants and children will be first in line. Then who will it be? After the two servants?
Leah with her children, and then Rachel,
Yes. Then Leah with her children
and Rachel and Joseph.
second, and then Rachel and Joseph last. Now you'll notice a couple things here. The only child of Jacob's that is mentioned by name is Joseph in this.
Mm.
Okay, so he's already setting up the next story that's coming, or soon coming in around 37. That there seems to be a special relationship that Jacob has with Joseph. He puts him last. He's very protective of Rachel and Joseph. This is clearly a favorite son. It's his youngest son right now. Benjamin hasn't been born yet. And it's with Rachel, the wife that he really wanted. Meanwhile, the servants and Leah go first with those kids. And then what happens next? Jacob goes before them all. And what does he do?
Bow to the ground.
Yeah. So he's approaching his brother and he bows to the ground 7 times until he reaches Esau. Why does he do that? What is that?
He's honoring his brother or being subservient to his brother.
Yeah, it is a sign of humility and
Submission.
submission. He's presenting himself as the servant and the lesser, even which is completely. God said he would be the greater and the older would serve the younger, and yet here again we see Jacob taking the lowest place, humbling himself before his brother, and coming before him in real humility and submission toward him. Okay. So that's his preparation. Well, let's see how now Esau's response to his brother. And this is verses 4 to 11. Let's see, we leave off here. Bob Thomas, would you get that for us?
Sure. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And when Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children, he said, "Who are these with you?" Jacob said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Then the servants drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah likewise and her children drew near and bowed down. And last, Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down. Esau said, "What do you mean by all this company that I met?" Jacob answered,
That's right. I put it up here. There we go.
yeah, Trying to find where it is. Okay, Jacob answered, to find favor in the sight of my Lord. But Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. Jacob said, no, please, I have found favor in your sight. Then accept my present from my hand. For I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Please accept my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. Thus he urged him, and he took it.
Okay. This is a remarkable scene here. Esau's response to Jacob. What does he do?
He welcomes him and he loves him and he kisses him.
Yeah, specifically, and what the most remarkable is the very first thing it says he did.
Ran to
Embraced
meet
him and fell on his neck.
Yeah, he ran to meet him, embraced him, fell on his neck, and then,
Doesn't sound like the guy that wanted to kill him.
yeah, kissed him, and they wept. Who does it? Let me ask you this. When you read that first verse there, did that remind you of anyone else in the Bible that we've seen something like this before?
The father welcoming his prodigal son.
Exactly. Doesn't that sound like that?
Yeah.
This is exactly. In fact, some suggest that that's perhaps when Jesus told that story, he had this one in mind. It sounds just like the father of the prodigal. He runs. He's the one who had, last we left, it was Jacob who had run off after greatly offending his brother. And now it's Esau running to his brother who has come back. It's really an interesting scene. And I think it's going to be important when we get to the end of that paragraph and see how Jacob interprets all this. So Esau then sees what happens. Okay, Esau lifts his eyes, sees Jacob and the women and children. And what's his response to that?
Who are all these people?
Who are these people? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's talk about that here. Who are these with you?
So he doesn't
Jacob.
really know what, I mean, we're talking a lot of years here. He doesn't know what, really has no idea what his brother's done in this time.
Yeah, I mean, he probably knows that some of them are his children, but I mean, you have all these women and kids. It's quite a crew you've got there. You know, who are these folks? And Jacob's response is, again, he's speaking as a man of faith. How does Jacob respond?
The
These are
children,
that
God,
God,
Yeah, the children God hath graciously given your servants. And when we say, when God graciously gives something, what does that mean? Graciously give.
he gives us pleasure and joy.
Say that again, Teresa. I'm sorry.
He gives us when he gives to us, he gives with pleasure and joy and
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah, it's a joy for him to do it. And there's something else wrapped up in that term, grace.
It's a blessing.
unmerited favor.
Yeah, yes, it's an undeserved blessing. So Jacob acknowledging God has given me these children and I don't deserve them. When he says he's graciously given me these children, it's a blessing, absolutely, that God has given with joy to me, and I don't deserve any of it. And that's really, when you look at the story of Jacob, you come away with that conclusion, don't you? I mean, is there anything that Jacob does that really is deserving of God's merit and favor? It's like, yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find it. I mean, he's a bit of a schemer. He's a troublemaker, and he does some questionable things. At least he values the things of God, unlike Esau before. But he's not really known for his good works. He's not known for his valor and integrity, and he's just a man who has been chosen by God for some reason. And through that, him being chosen, he will become a remarkable man. But it's a journey for him, and it's a journey of grace that has been given to him. So,
What amazes me is that it's been nearly 20 years since they've seen each other, and Esau recognizes him from afar and goes running up to him. It's, I don't, maybe he knew the way he walked or something, but he knew who he was without seeing him for the past 20 some odd years.
Well, he's
So-
limping now since the last time he saw him.
yeah. Now he did know that was well, a couple things I think about that. One is he knew that he was coming up to meet Jacob and his troop there. That was the arrangement. So it wasn't a shock. They knew meeting was happening.
Okay.
But also, it wasn't that they weren't teenagers when they last saw each other. By all accounts, I believe Jacob was probably in his 50s when he left, or actually maybe even older than that. I think he might have been even 60 years old when he left. He's about 80 years old. So it's not going to be as enormous a difference as like a teenager when you see him when he's in his 40s. So they'll be he'll certainly look older, but I think they'll probably look similar. But he knows, but I think it's just shocked that the way he runs to him and embrace. That's not the Esau we remember at all.
Right.
But
That
it
is
also
not-
sounds like, from what Esau is saying, that the predictions that his father has said haven't really come true yet. It sounds like he's done well for himself.
Yeah, and I think he is. But you'll notice he's not living in the land anymore. He's over in Edom now. He's left that land.
Yeah,
Certainly God has provided for him, similar to the way he did with Ishmael. Ishmael was never, God took care of them, but they didn't really live in the Fertile Crescent. They didn't really live in that promised land either.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but Jacob, so the children God has graciously given your servants, and then the servants and the children and the women, and what do they all do?
they all bow down to him.
All draw near and bow down. Again, emphasizing that the humble posture he's instructed them all to do. And the question is, what do you mean by all this? Why all this? Why are you doing this? Esau is, again, we're going to take them at their word. When they speak, unless we're told otherwise, they are speaking honestly. So, Jacob is, what do you mean by all this? And Esau asked that question, and Jacob responds and says, why is he doing this way? Why does he come bowing himself this way and have all the children and women bow before Esau like that? Why does he do that?
So you won't kill me.
Yeah, okay. He describes it this way. What does he say?
To find favor in the Lord.
Yeah, to find favor in the sight of my Lord. He calls him Lord. And he seeks
Oh, I didn't notice that. A small L.
favor. Yeah, he's calling Esau my Lord. He's putting himself as the servant here and saying, I'm doing this to find favor with you. He feels that I think Jacob understands that what he did was wrong, and that he is feeling grief over this, or at least recognizes that Esau wanted to kill him before and wants to restore that relationship in some way. Esau's response to that. Look how Esau responds here.
I have enough, my brother.
Yeah.
Keep what you have for yourself.
Have enough. Keep it. He doesn't want it. Okay, so Esau runs to his brother, embraces him, falls on his neck, kisses him, and weeps. And then when he's offered all these things, he says, I don't need them. I don't want them. But Jacob insists. Why does he insist?
Please accept my blessing that is brought to you because God has dealt graciously with me
Yeah.
because I have enough.
Yeah. So Esau says, I've got enough. I've got enough. But Jacob says to him, will insist upon that you keep the blessing. God has dealt gracious with me. I don't, I got enough. You're not gonna, I appreciate you. I'm not, this is not, I'm not gonna go hungry here. God has taken care of me. But he tells him, he gives him a reason before that in verse 10 of why he insists, please take this from me.
If I found a favor in your sight.
Yes, the goods as a sign that he has found favor with him. So it's the same thing when I think Jacob and didn't he end that way with Laban, where he exchanged things with him, and or there's different times when they have a covenant and they exchange things and they want to. It cements the deal. It makes it official. Like you've accepted this gift to you. If you've accepted it, then we really are at peace. If you don't accept it, then I don't know if we're at peace or not. You might say, I don't want it, I don't need it, I'm good, but you haven't given me a tangible sign that you've officially accepted me. Yeah, Rob?
No, I
All
was
the
gonna say,
kings and everybody
listen.
else.
Rob first, I'm sorry.
I'm just missing, what exactly is the gift that he wants to give him?
He gave him a whole bunch of stuff before. If you remember the last chapter, he sent him all kinds of flocks and all kinds of sheep and things like
Okay.
that. Wave after wave of these gifts he had sent last chapter. He sent ahead of him.
Oh, okay, all right.
And he gave him so much stuff. And then he says, I don't need any of this stuff here. But no. Please take it. Because if he gives it back, and there's that uncertainty in Jacob if his brother really is at peace with him. He accepts the gift. It's kind of like if you gave a ring to your girlfriend and she said, oh no, I could never take that from you. That's too expensive. Take it back, give it back. That doesn't make you feel good because you now like, wait a minute, she's not accepting this. Is she doing that because she cares about my financial situation? Or is she doing that because she doesn't want a commitment from me?
Yeah.
That's the uncertainty here. Bob, you're going to say something. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that all the time they're traveling with their father's coming into other kings' lands, and those kings are bringing their father gifts, and it was to show that we've got peace between us.
Yes. And you remember there was one time when one of their fathers refused gifts from someone?
Yes.
It was Abraham. Do you remember the one time when he refused gifts from a king?
Yeah, just because he didn't want it, he actually paid the king a tithe.
That was Melchizedek. He paid a king to, but there was that same scene. There was a king that he refused that wanted to give Abraham lots of gifts, and Abraham refused.
Oh, king of Sodom, right?
King of Sodom wanted to give him lots of gifts. And Abraham says, nope, you will not be able to say you made me rich. I will not give you any leverage over me. And there's no covenant. There's no connection with Sodom. And Sodom, of course, as you know, is destroyed soon thereafter. So he takes it as a sign of found favor. But look at his conclusion here. He says Jacob's observation of this scene, and I paid very close attention to it. He compares his experience encountering Esau with something. What does he compare it to?
Like seeing the face of God.
Like seeing the face of God. So let's talk about that. How is Jacob's encounter with Esau like seeing the face of God?
Okay. He's getting amazing grace from Esau.
Yeah. Yes, this scene is Jacob is experiencing grace. He is from his brother, whom he has greatly offended. And so, and he has, and the response of the brother, Esau, really is, for this moment at least, that's the mystery of it, is, who is it that said this? They said the great writers in the world, their characters are always very complicated. Their heroes have significant flaws, and their villains have virtues. And so which makes them really interesting characters. And in this story, it's really an interesting story because our hero, Jacob, has serious flaws. And the villain, Esau, has virtues. Who knew? All of a sudden. And in this scene, Jacob is helping us understand this whole scene of what it is to see the face of God. He says, it's like this scene here. It's like Jacob coming in fear and terror before his brother, bowing down, fearful of the wrath of his brother. And when he draws near to him, he receives kisses and blessings and peace. And they said, and you can see why I think the language here Jesus borrows when he talks about the prodigal son. It's the same story, but now with God, and the prodigal son runs off and offends the father in many ways, but the father, when he sees him, returns, runs to him, kisses him, blesses him, and just rejoicing. And we know it's sincere. We absolutely know this is sincere.
Well, he's had 20 years to calm down.
Yeah, but do people do this even after 20 years? You know, does the length of time make the bitterness go away?
I know instances where it definitely doesn't.
My grandmother, she held some grudges to her grave, and my mom talked with her about it too. She was like, "Mom, they're all dead. He's 103 years old. They're all dead." And it's like, and she had the hardest time. She could not let it go. Even decades after they all had died, she had still felt a bitterness to those who had hurt her in her life. And it's enslaving. It's really a hard thing. So this is a miracle, to be honest with you. This scene is one of the most shocking scenes in the book of Genesis, to my mind. This kind of action here. So, yeah. So Jacob comes. Let me pull it back here. So Jacob comes with fear and trembling and is shocked to be received with such joy and peace. And that's a great scene for us because I think it fulfills, at least it's the last scene we have of Esau the man. He and Jacob, I think he'll be mentioned one more time, but this is the last story really of Esau. And it ends with basically, this is what it looks like to throw off that yoke of slavery and to be free. That kind of forgiveness and grace. Absolutely beautiful story.
Oh, that was the last part of the prophecy that his father gave him in his blessing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I think this is that scene. When you grow restless, you'll throw off that yoke. And I think he is free at this point. At least Esau is. There'll be a complicated relationship between the Edomites and the Jews, but it's this is a moment of freedom for the man. And so it's a great scene. So let's pick it up from there. Let me jump to verse 12. Let me just insert Page break. Okay. All right. Where we leave off here? Teresa, you want to get that for us? 12 to 14.
Sure. Could you make it a little bigger, please?
Okay. Lose it. So hang on a second.
Okay.
Okay. I think there it is. Okay. How's that?
Perfect. Then Esau said, "Let us journey on our way, and I will go ahead of you." But Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are frail, and that the nursing flocks and herds are a care to me. If they are driven hard for one day, all the flocks will die. Let my Lord pass on ahead of his servant, and I will lead on slowly, at a pace of the livestock that are ahead of me, and at a pace of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir."
All right. So Esau makes a further offer. And what does he say to him now?
He wants to journey on together.
Yeah. Esau offers to lead Jacob and his family back to Seir, which is where Esau is dwelling. So he's inviting him home. We'll go on ahead of you, which is a very generous offer. He's going to say, look, you'll be much safer with me. I mean, 400 men here. He's offering his protection to him. Jacob, what does Jacob do to that, though, with that? He
declines and says he'll take his time with the flocks and his children.
Yeah. So he declined. Jacob declined. Now, first off, Jacob speaks again to Esau, and he uses the phrase, "My Lord," to him, again, humbling himself before him, and then he declines the offer. But says, what does he say? He will do? So he says, "You go ahead. If we try to follow you, we're gonna die because we can't keep up with your men. We got lots of little kids here and herds, and if I have to drive them hard to keep up with you guys, it's gonna be too much for them. So you go on ahead. I'll catch up with you." And then he does say, I will meet you in Seir. Okay, so Jacob says he will meet him in Seir. Okay.
Then he doesn't.
No, he doesn't, does he? Let's see what happens next year. 15 to 17. Jackie, you want to get that for us?
So Esau said, "Let me leave with you some of the people who are with me." But he said, "What need is there? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord." Small L. So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir, but Jacob journeyed to Succoth,
Okay,
and built himself a house and made booths for his livestock. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth.
Okay. So Esau makes a second offer. So this is his first offer. And this is now his second. His first offer is, I'll go on ahead of you, follow me. And so Esau's second offer is what?
I'll leave some people to protect you.
Yeah, I'll leave some people behind. I'll leave a few men behind to help, And Jacob declines that offer as well. No need. Just let me find favor in the sight of my Lord. Okay. And then Esau returns, just happy to have favor with Esau. He doesn't care. He doesn't need the protection. God will protect him. I'm just thrilled we have peace. And then something interesting happens. So Esau returns to Seir, and where does Jacob go?
Succoth.
Goes to Succoth.
How far apart are these two?
Good question. Let's go to our map. We actually have it on our map here.
Yeah, Sukkoth is north of the Dead Sea, and Edom is way south of the Dead Sea.
Yeah, see, here's our map here. This is where he meets, this is in Mahanaim. I think this is Penuel where he meets the Lord there. It's right about there that he encounters Esau. The number 6 there.
Yeah.
Esau says, "Follow me. We're heading off to Seir, which is down this way." And he says, "No, you go on ahead. I'll meet you down there." And he's like, "Nope, see ya." He cuts over here to Succoth before heading across the Jordan back into Shechem, to the promised land. So he heads over to Succoth. And it says that this is why it's called Succoth. What does Succoth mean? Does anyone have a note on that? I think there should be a footnote.
Oh, 17.
And then
Booths. Booths.
Booth. Is that what it means?
Yeah,
Yes.
booths.
Yeah, sometimes that Feast of Tabernacles is called Sukkot, the booths. So he goes there to Jerusalem. He builds himself a house and made booths for his livestock, and he was called Succoth. What's going on there? Why does he lie?
It's like he's going back to the promised land, isn't he?
He absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, the promises of Abraham are going through Jacob now. That includes land. Why would he want to go to Seir, which is a bunch of worthless mountains, according to Obadiah, kind of rocky land?
Yeah, it would have been the. So here's the thing: the theme of Jacob seems to be, with all these stories, if you've noticed, that people are deceived into doing the right thing. Like the actions that happen are the right thing, but the way they get there seems to be through acts of deception. So, you know, is it the right thing that Jacob should get get the birthright? Absolutely, because God told Rebecca that the older will serve the younger, but that it was a little bit sneaky to get it by a bowl of soup and take advantage of your brother. Was it right that Jacob should get the blessing? Absolutely right. But the means by which it came about is through, again, an act of deception. Was it right that Jacob should marry Leah first? And clearly she's the one that God wanted, because Judah and Levi and all the great ones come from Leah, and she's the most honored wife. But that's not the one that Jacob wanted, and he was deceived into doing the right thing. And again, every turn, it seemed like there's like sort of acts of deception that fulfill the promises of God, which again shows the point of grace again and again and again. It's like you don't come out of the story thinking well of Jacob, that he's just this great guy, man of courage and integrity. He's a fearful soul. Yet there is faith there. And he does the right thing in returning to the promised land, but he's still a fearful soul. And he doesn't fully trust his brother just yet. If he would really trusted God, he could say, look, I got to go to the promised lands. I'm heading that way. I got to go to Succoth. That's where we're heading. It's time to go back. It's been great seeing you. But just to make it easy, he said, no, you go ahead. We'll catch up. And then he scoots out. He takes the easy way. And so there's that scene. And I think it emphasizes the point that all those blessings are things he's graciously received from God. That it really is grace with Jacob.
And if Esau hadn't accepted the gifts, then there wouldn't be that peace between them. The fact that he accepted it kind of, in other words, if he had just gone off and kept everything himself, his brother may have come back against him again. But now he's got this thing that says, no, we've We've
Yeah.
we've got a compact of
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah, and you know, Jacob is, this is what a great moment. It's a great moment. They can leave in peace, just as Laban leaves in peace. And so it wouldn't have been good for Jacob to go to Seir. That would have been a bad thing. That's not where he needs to go. He needs to go in the direction he does. Yeah, unfortunately, he doesn't have the conviction, the courage just yet to be straight with his brother and say, I'm heading that way. He's a frail man. But he does the right thing. He does end up going there. And so Jacob comes safely to Shechem. We'll finish up this story here. And Roy, would you want to finish us up here? 18 to 20.
Okay,
We'll lose in a second here, so you know.
I can see it.
Okay, there we go.
And Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, on his way from Padan Aram, and he camped before the city. And from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he bought for 100 pieces of money the piece of land on which he had pitched his tent. There he erected an altar and called it El Elohi Israel.
Okay. All right, so Jacob arrives safely to Shechem in the land of Canaan. And let's go back up there. He camps in that city. And what does he do when he's there?
He erected an altar.
An altar.
Yeah, before he built an altar.
He made booths.
Yeah, verse 19.
Oh, he bought the land.
Yeah, Jacob buys a piece of land for 100 pieces of silver. So he gets
That kind of reminds me of my brain. I got to get my brain in line here. But when the temple plot was bought, remember the guy wanted to give it to him,
Mhm.
and he says, "No, I'll buy it."
Yeah, David. Yeah.
David, yeah.
Yeah. And it also just reminds me of Abraham when he bought the field for his for a burial site for his wife.
Yeah,
He
yes.
made that deal. So he purchases. So the land is now slowly being purchased here. It's not a huge property, but he gets a property for himself and he begins this. This is the beginning of a settlement here of settling the land. This is something new. Where
100
before they're
pieces
wandering
of
as nomads.
silver.
Say that again?
100 pieces of silver. How much did Judas sell Jesus for? 30.
30.
So, yeah. I'm not sure how much 100 pieces of silver of money is. Anyone? Not sure if we know.
Well, if it's truly silver, in today's price, that would be about $2,500.
Yeah, price. It says here that the Hebrew term rendered here money, kesatah, is used rarely in the Old Testament. The precise value is uncertain, so we're not sure how much that is. But it is the beginning of the settling of the land here, because he did buy a property for them to live on. When Abraham bought the property, it was to bury his dead. But now he's kind of he's buying a property to settle in, and they're going to actually have a home in the promised land.
So they were no longer considered nomads at that point.
Yeah, I think at this point he's no longer a nomad. This is the first time now he's kind of, it's like a down payment on the land that God is going to give them the whole land, and he's given them a small piece of it now to build on. So he does, and so and then like his father and grandfather before him, he erects an altar. And what is the altar's name? Elohe Israel. What does that mean?
The God.
What does it mean?
God, the God of Israel.
God, the God of Israel.
Don't the Jews also have a celebration of the booths?
Yes. Yeah, the
Is that
tabernacle.
from this?
Well, I think it's coincidental in one sense, in that the booths that they are remembering are the booths that they lived in the wilderness during the Exodus.
Okay.
So here he's building booths for his livestock. They're remembering the booths that they lived in when they were in the wilderness, and God dwelt with them through that. So he builds an altar, and again, another an act of faith. Every time, this is what pleases God. He's acknowledging God. God is the one who graciously gave me these children. God is now the God of Israel, and he's fulfilling that promise. Remember what he had said? Jacob fulfills his promise. Remember what Jacob's promise was? You go back when he first left the land. So let's go. Here's the map of the land. Where are we here? Up here. Where's my spot? Here we go. So if you remember, last time his story began back in Beersheba, and he fled, and he stopped at Bethel. And what happened at Bethel after he fled his brother?
That's the story of the stairway or the ladder.
Yes.
God
spoke to him.
restates his promise to Jacob.
And he said at that point, if the Lord, remember now, the Lord is at this point, he's one of many gods. All these different nations have gods. And he says, if the Lord tells him, I'm going to bring you back to this land. I'm with you now. I will not leave you. I'm going to bring you back. And he says, if the Lord will bring me back, then he will be my God.
Yeah.
And 1/10 of all that I get, I will give to him. And then that was 20 years ago, he had made that promise. And then he goes off to Padan Aram. He's there for 20 years. Then he comes back now, and we had that encounter with first here at Gilead. I think it was here that he encounters Laban and settles with him. And then he comes down to Penuel and settles with Esau. And now he scoots over to Succoth, and then he finally gets back into the promised land to Shechem, and there he builds an altar, and he calls the altar El Elohe Israel, God, the God of Israel. And who is Israel?
Jacob.
He is Israel. That's right. He is my God. He fulfills that promise. God is now my God. He's been faithful to his promise. And that's the conclusion of his journeys now, at least the first part of his journeys. And then we'll get now to next time we meet, we'll continue his time in the promised land here before the whole incident with Joseph comes later on. So
That's cool.
all right. So that's where we are. That's where we left off, and we'll close it here. Any last comments or thoughts? Go.